We're back on the Relationship Sexpert Show. Once again, I'm Hasani Pettiford. We're talking about black, sexy, and single. And we're just having a good time over here. Listen, Joy, you wrote a book called Me, Myself, and Him.
Yes.
What's the nature of this book?
The nature of the book is basically it deals with a woman who she's living with her living boyfriend, but her aunt's been badgering about going to church, so she finally goes to church. But even in the midst of that, there's something just been coming over her. You know, before she could make love with her maid and everything was everything, but now every time she makes love with him afterwards, there's this feeling of guilt. And she goes from calling it love making to fornicating, and so she goes and, you know, to make a long story short, and she begins to seek God. Well, we all know in Romans 12, all God wants you to do is present your body holy and acceptable, and it says it's your reasonable service, which means God would not ask us to do anything that is not reasonable. So she determines, if this is reasonable, God saw it reasonable to place upon me, why do I have to give myself to this man who is not my husband? So she came to that conclusion with her relationship with God, but this man, you know, he's still in the world. So he doesn't see it that way. He's basically saying, well, we've been having sex. Even her girlfriends, well, you've been having sex with him. How can you stop now? Well, if I'm a crackhead, I would hate to come to you. But you've been smoking crack. Why you want to smoke? Why you want to stop smoking now?
Crack, they probably would say.
Right. But wait, this is a good discussion. Since we're talking about sex, let's deal with this, because you know, when you look at the national statistics, the average single engages in sex anywhere between the 3rd date and the 6th week of knowing someone. And so if it hasn't happened in that specific window or period of time, you move on to the next.
But you just said something. You said in knowing someone. In the 3rd date to the 6th week, I don't know you. I don't know you, and you don't know me, because I'm still in that I have my mask on, and I am still being the person that you want me to be, who I think you want me to be. So you don't know me, you know of me.
Masks. You know, there's a book I was actually working on called Trick, Trapped, and Trifling.
Wow.
Because oftentimes we wear the mask, we put on the facade, we put our best foot forward because we don't want to show the bunion on the other toe.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to relationships, it seems like there's not a lot of honesty. No, you have that mask on, and then we don't talk about our issues. We don't talk about the things that are going to make us unattractive to someone.
We don't set ourselves free.
You know what I mean?
Basically.
And
we do
so
not set ourselves free.
And before you realize it, you in this relationship, and I'm talking to you, and you're not the person that you presented yourself to be. You presented yourself to be confident. You presented yourself. I asked you several times, can you handle me? Yeah, I can handle it. It's not a problem. Get right down to it. No, you were married. You had other girlfriends. You had babies you didn't tell me about. You didn't tell me about the incest molestation that you suffered as a woman. And so you bringing all of this into this relationship.
But some would say you're not marrying or dating my past. You're dating my present. So those issues are irrelevant.
No, right
Only
now.
if they've unpacked their baggage.
Right.
If they have set themselves free.
If not,
they have set
it's relevant.
free.
Because what you do, what you find yourself in is situations where somebody didn't tell you about the incest molestation. And so they're still
And
dealing
you're
with
not
this.
over that
Yes,
thing.
because
There's a
they never got
difference.
counseling, and they're still going through it every day. So when you go to touch your mate, she's jumping,
Exactly.
and you're trying to figure out what's wrong, baby, and eventually it'll come out. But you should have said that up front. We don't tell a lot of stuff.
You have all these strings that are attached to issues from your past, and what happens are if you don't cut those strings, if you don't forgive and you don't forget, you try to engage with somebody else, they get wrapped up in it. And the harder you try to pull away from it, the tighter it gets around their waist.
I mean, all right, this all sounds good. This is intellectual and all that great stuff. But let's talk about real scenarios. If I'm on a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd date with you, there's certain things I'm not trying to tell you because I want the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th date.
Okay.
So at what point in the dating or the relationship phase or season do these things come out?
You have to temper it, yes,
Exactly.
because you don't want to put everything out there on the first
Right.
conversation. But when you're asked specifically about things, don't dance it.
Exactly.
101 questions.
Right.
You see, before we ever even get to the nakedness physically, let me see what you are mentally naked and spiritually naked. So I'm asking the first 5 questions, maybe on the first date, the second 5 on the second date, and
Exactly.
If you're going to dinner and a movie every time, if you're going places that you can't
Right.
talk, you can't do anything
Right.
interactive, you can't get to know each other. I'm sorry, a movie is not a date.
No.
You're both going to enjoy an experience
Yes.
almost apart from each
Yes.
other.
Yes.
So
let's talk about this. You know, you mentioned the whole, job interview scenario of an employer being on the other side of the table, and we know how to dance our way through an interview. Oftentimes, there should be a probationary period after you've made that selection. And in that probationary period, just like a job, you know, you don't have one interview. You have an interview by the supervisor, the manager, the CEO of the company, possibly other coworkers. So there's other people giving their input in terms of whether they think this person is qualified for that position. But when we date, they're exclusive. We don't have a community, if you will, of people.
Oh, yeah, we do. We don't use them. Friends, the family, your girlfriends, your boyfriends. And when your girlfriend tell you, brother, she is not the one, it's not because she's jealous. It's because she sees something in that woman.
Yeah, but you just want my man. That's what
you do have to be careful about who you involve in your relationships, though, because there are some people who want to equate what you're doing to something somebody else did that's not your situation. You've got friends who will hate. You've got girlfriends who will hate, who want to see you in a relationship, who want to live vicariously through you. You have to be careful about these types of situations.
But you know who to bring to the table, though. We're talking about mature people, right? You know who to bring to the table. Your mama's stable, I hope. Take her home to see your mama, okay? Because your mama got something. When you have children, she can see something.
That's the truth.
She can see something.
You know, when I was dating, a girl would walk in the room, in the house, and my mother didn't have to hear her say a word, just a look, a glance, and she would nod of disapproval.
She's not the one.
She's not the one. Every single time she was right and exact. I didn't want to hear it. But in essence, they have something. You know, I talk about you need to have a parent or someone of authority that you respect, a peer that you can trust, a pastor or someone in spiritual authority. You have to have a community of people who you can rely on that's going to give you that type of feedback.
And if you don't have that, you always have God.
Yeah,
you always have that. He will answer.
You can feel it.
He will answer. Speak to him. Ask him. He will answer.
So let's talk about what we need to do. Where do we go from here? We can talk about the issues because that's all you hear about is the issues and the problems. Let's come up with some tangible solutions for men and women in order to help navigate them through this dating process so that they can enter into healthy relationships.
Well, like you said, with issues, and then it goes back to setting yourself free. When you bring issues into relationship, issues. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you. You have issues. It's not always that other person. Like, I'm married. And I would mask, we go back to the mask too, I would mask my complaints as a prayer. But God, and he did this, and God, and he did that, and then God, well, what did you do? It's you.
Check yourself.
It's you. So you have to look at not what that person did. Oh, he has cheated on me X amount of times. Well, what did you do time one? What did you do on time two? Well, he did this and he did that. Well, my husband came in and I had worked all day too, and he's talking about the dinners now. Well, you know, what did you do? Sometimes it's about you and how you respond to things. And then the first thing people want to say is, oh, I can't deal with this. I can do bad all by myself. Don't you want to do better by yourself if you have to be by yourself? Why you want to do bad by yourself?
So in essence, you're saying that the lowest common denominator in every relationship you get into is you.
It's
you. Take you everywhere you go.
It's you.
So if you're running into the same problems, the same issues, interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And people don't want to deal with themselves, and that is the issue.
That's what I said. We don't want to get naked with each other. We don't even want to pass the mirror. We want to turn out the lights if we naked. We don't want to go by our own mirror. We don't even see what we want to. We don't want to accept that we live with that person that we're looking at.
You have to be honest with yourself first before you can be honest with anybody else.
Exactly.
And know the difference between an explanation and an excuse.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
What do you mean by that?
Usually when, like what you were talking about, where you mask your problems as prayers, it's like, okay, well, this is what they do, this is what they do. These are all excuses. You know, if there's an explanation for certain things, but if you're looking for an excuse or a reason to get around what you're doing, just like if we're talking about honesty, don't use honesty as an excuse. Don't say, well, you know, I told you how it was before it started, and then know that you're willingly hurting them. Know the difference between an explanation and an excuse. There's certain things that people need to know about dating. Like, a man will never do any more to you than what you let him.
Absolutely.
And you need to know that, you know, sex doesn't mean a relationship to a man the same way it does to a woman. So if you're thinking on that third date, by the time you have sex with them, that sealed the deal, you're a couple now, it doesn't work the same way for a man. Because everything he was saying up to that point was probably to get you into that bed. Now you've met a whole new person. He's got what he wanted from you. Now what?
Now
and what a lot of people don't realize is the transferring of spirits. When you become intimate, you are now a part of that
That's a whole
person.
episode.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. And another thing is, I was talking to these guys over the break, but what I find that women do is we don't purge ourselves from one relationship to the next.
Wait a minute, hold that thought. We're going to go into another commercial break, and I want you to come back and elaborate on what you mean by that. We'll be right back with the Relationship Sexpert Show. See you on the other side of this break.